Are rated. Let's talk about air conditioning a little bit. A ton of cooling. You're going to hear this all the time. Oh, I want a 3-ton unit. I want a 5-ton unit. Oh, I need a 1.5-ton unit. Oh, what the heck is a ton of air conditioning? That's a measurement of weight. Well, it is a measurement of weight. And what we're talking about is a block of ice that's 2,000 pounds, that weighs 2,000 pounds. That is a ton of ice. And the amount of time it takes to melt all that ice to water. A ton of air conditioning is the amount of heat necessary to melt 1 ton of ice, 2,000 pounds of ice, in 24 hours. How much heat do you have to supply to that ton block of ice to get it to melt in a 24-hour period? Well, here's the answer. 144 BTUs per pound. That's called the latent heat of condensation. Every pound of ice that you melt at 32 degrees that becomes water at 32 degrees requires 144 BTUs per pound be added to it to cause it to melt, to condense. So if we have 144 BTUs per pound and we have 2,000 pounds, a ton of air conditioning, and a lot of people in your office may not even know that, is 288,000 BTUs per day. Now, there's 24 hours in a day, so divide that 288 by 24 and you're going to get 12,000 BTUs per hour. That's typically the way it's stated in our industry, and it's a nominal value. That means that a 3-ton air conditioning isn't necessarily 3 times 12,000 or 36,000 BTUs. It could be anywhere from 33 to 37,000 BTUs depending on which condenser and coil combination you use. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But this is a nominal value. Now, there was a place, and I can't think of where it is. I think it was in St. Louis. There was a St. Louis or Cleveland. I don't remember. I'm all over the country all the time, but there was a park in this fairly large city, and it was located somewhere in the center of town. And this radio station ran a promo every year and trying to raise money for charity. And what they would do, they'd take a 2,000-pound block of ice, from a local ice company. They'd put it in the center of the park in a little pan, not a little large pan that was built up around it so they could hold all the water. And they would charge you, I think it was $10 or $20 a pop, to make a guess as to what time of day and day of the month or week it would melt. That the last solid piece of ice would go to water. They raised a fortune. They did it every year. It was a real popular event. They raised a lot of money for charity. And of course all the engineers came out with their slide rules and their calculators, and all the meteorologists were out there with their hygrometers and sextants, and everybody's trying to predict temperature coming up ahead and how long it's going to take. And the latent heat of condensation is a big issue with the engineering people, of course. And the person that wins every year, of course, is some grandmother that picks her grandson's birthday. So it's a cute thing, but that's literally what a ton of air conditioning is. 2,000 pounds of ice melted in a 24-hour period generates 12,000 BTUs per hour is required to do that. You'll see this 400 CFM per ton too, another nominal value that doesn't hold up everywhere. If you're listening to this and you're in Tucson, Arizona, you need a lot more than 400 CFM per ton because you don't have moisture in your air and you're at elevation. So you need to supply more air for the same amount of heating or cooling. If you're in a damp area, that's probably a good number, but you could even go lower. Anywhere from 350 to 415, 420 are very common. 450. What's CFM? CFM is a volume measurement. It's cubic feet per minute. That's what CFM stands for. A cubic foot of air, plain air, the air sitting right in front of you. Take a 12-inch by 12-inch by 12-inch block of it. That's 1 cubic foot. If you were to put that cubic foot of air on a scale at sea level, it would weigh 0.0741 pounds. Air is pretty light stuff. Whether you're at sea level or you're up in the mountains, it's light. If you take 13.33 of those cubic feet, you're going to have 1 pound. What's 1 pound of air? 1 pound of air is, what's 13.33 cubic feet? It's, take a phone booth. If you're old enough to remember what a phone booth was. They don't have too many of them anymore, but it used to be a booth you would go into. It was roughly 2 feet square and about 6.5, 7 feet high. So it held about 2 pounds of air. So half of the air in a phone booth. And that's without Superman in there changing his clothes, because he takes up a lot of room. And we get to another value. The reason I'm working up to this is this, 0.244 BTUs. That's the specific heat of air. The specific heat of air is the amount of heat necessary to raise the temperature of 1 pound of a substance, air, 1 degree Fahrenheit, when the air is 70 degrees. Now, so what's 1 pound of air? Half a phone booth, 13.33 cubic feet. So if I take a wooden match, do it this way. I take 2 wooden matches, go into a phone booth where there's 2 cubic feet of air. When the air in that phone booth is 70 degrees, I can raise the temperature to 71. Some relevance. Nominal volume ratings for air handlers and blowers work this way, because CFM, cubic feet per minute, is what we're circulating. It's all this stuff we're circulating. We circulate 13.33 CFM, we're circulating a pound of air. Now think of it this way. There's 400 CFM per ton nominally. Before, if I have a 3-ton unit, I have what? 1,200 CFM I need to circulate to get that 36,000 BTUs into the building because of the specific heat and the weight of the air and all that. But do the math. 1,200 CFM, 1,200 times 0.0741. You know, that's what, about 90 pounds. How about if you have a 4-ton unit? 4 times 400. Now you need 1,600 CFM of air. 1,600 times 0.0741, that's about 120 pounds. My wife weighs 120 pounds. She's 5'7", 120 pounds. I'm circulating the weight of her body every minute, CFM, through a duct system we designed in order to get the cooling we need. It's a tough job we got when we have to design all this stuff and lay it out and size it and pick blowers, and it's not easy. Nominal volume ratings for air handlers go like this. There's about 7 sizes: 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, and 5. It's about half-ton increments, but not everywhere. We jump from 4 to 5. Okay, there's no 4.5-ton unit. I say that, and I know there's an exception to the rule, certainly, but 9 out of 9 times you're not going to find a 4.5-ton unit available. Residential work, this is it. This is the beginning of it. Some manufacturers make a 1-ton unit. It only goes to 5-ton. After 5-ton, you're in what we call light commercial work. The next step from 5-ton typically is 7.5-ton. So it's a big leap. Problem is, 7.5-ton blower is a big commercial, ugly-looking unit that you're not going to put in a residence, right? And it's going to make too much noise anyway. It's not designed for that. So this is what this 400 CFM stuff is about. When you hear CFM, just think, okay, they're circulating air. That's so many cubic feet of it per minute. And of course, the 3-ton unit is going to have 36,000 BTUs and 1,200 CFM. You know, every ton of air, every 12,000 BTUs needs at least 400 CFM to get it to where it's going.